Today, we will be discussing the missing persons case of Gabby Petito, with recent updates and a popular TikTok trend encouraging people to vandalize their schools and other public property.
Then Pfizer is in the process of offering vaccinations for children as young as 5 years old. Following that, we will be chatting with a small business owner from Long Beach to see how the pandemic affected his delivery service.
Lastly, history was made with the first ever civilian spaceflight, and locals were shaken up by a recent Southern California earthquake. I'm Chris Adler.
I'm Amanda Mendoza.
And I'm Jorge Flores. As you can see, we are practicing safety during the pandemic and wearing our masks so that we can gather for today's episode of The Report. Follow us on Twitter at The Report CSUF or on our Titan TV Instagram, Titan TV CSUF, to keep in touch with us and view our new content.
The human remains recovered in Teton County, Wyoming Sunday were confirmed by Teton County Coroner Brent Blue to be those of missing 22-year-old Gabby Petito. The coroner said the manner of death was homicide, but the cause of death is still being determined. Petito left her Northport, Florida home with her fiancé Brian Laundrie on a cross-country excursion where the couple was living out of Petito's van, stopping to visit major national parks. Her 23-year-old fiancé Brian Laundrie returned to their Northport home with Petito's white van on September 1st, but without Petito. Her parents reported her missing on September 11th, saying the last time they had any confirmed contact with her was between August 24th and 27th. They did receive a text message on August 30th from their daughter's phone saying she had no service in Yosemite. Petito's parents saying they don't believe that text was from their daughter. Utah police stopped the couple in their vehicle on August 12th after a 911 call from a witness who said they saw a man slap a woman in the face. The audio from that call was just released from the Grand County Sheriff's Office in Colorado.
Grand County Sheriff's Office.
Were you able to get a description of the intoxication?
Hi, can you hear me, sir? Yeah, I can hear you.
Hi, I'm calling. I'm right on the corner of Main Street by Moonflower, and we're driving by, and I'd like to report a domestic dispute. Florida with the white van, Florida license plate, white land, gentleman,
Where's it at?
5'6" beard. They just drove off. They're going down Main Street. They made a right onto Main Street from Moonflower.
Or what were they doing?
Cooperative, but what do you say?
What were they doing?
We drove by, and the gentleman was slapping the girl.
He was slapping her?
Yes, and then we stopped. They ran up and down the sidewalk. He proceeded to hit her, hopped in the car, and they drove off.
Okay, you said it's a white van?
White van. I can give you the license plate if you give me 1 sec. I took a picture of it.
The Utah police who stopped Laundrie and Petito had the couple separate for the night, sending Laundrie back to their hotel and giving Petito the keys to the van. What happened after that is the big question. Laundrie was named a person of interest as he was the last one seen with Petito. Police did not have a warrant to search his parents' home at the time Petito was reported missing, and Laundrie refused to cooperate with police, retaining an attorney. Laundrie reportedly left his parents' home on September 14th, saying he was headed to a Sarasota County nature reserve. His parents reported him missing after he wasn't heard from for 3 days. Police finally obtained a search warrant of Laundrie's home, where multiple items were removed from the home, including a Ford Mustang parked in the driveway. While police are still searching for Laundrie in Florida as a person of interest, he has not been named a suspect and has not yet been charged with a crime.
I mean, there's a lot going on in this case, and a lot of different issues, but what comes to mind for you guys immediately when you hear something like this?
You know, first of all, I'm shocked by this story because as a young person, you know, sometimes we want to travel with our partners. You feel very happy and you are trying to have this wonderful weekend. However, something that it makes me feel very confused is why he didn't cooperate with the police since the beginning? And at least from a personal perspective, I would say that no matter if it's your boyfriend, girlfriend, fiance, we always gotta look for our personal safety first. And I think that the police could have done something else when they stopped us in that place. What do you think?
I think this whole situation is awful and tragic, and I feel so sorry this happened to Gabby, and I say sorry and condolences to her family. But what's interesting is that I watched the body cam video, at least a portion of it, and what I noticed is that Gabby Petito, she looked distressed, worried, she was apologetic. She blamed like the argument they had apparently on her OCD. And while Brian, he seemed very calm, like nothing was really going on. And so that kind of goes back to the slapping reported in Utah. So apparently there was a case where he might have slapped her. And so in regards to whether or not the police were right in separating them just for a night, I think it's a very complicated issue because they didn't necessarily have a lot to go on except for that one call and the body cam video where they were pretty much both diminishing what happened or whatever happened in that van. So truly, I feel sorry for Gabby, and I hope everything and her parents are feeling okay in this moment.
Well, a couple of points that I want to make with that, with the Utah police stopping them. You can see Brian Laundrie on there. He's kind of dismissive. He's kind of jovial, which is a red flag when she's in such distress. So I feel like a concerned husband or fiance, boyfriend would be mirroring her feelings, not kind of trying to downplay them. So for me, that was a red flag. Obviously, there's been reports coming in that he's aggressive, that there's been aggressive stuff going on. But I think that one of the things that comes to mind and people are talking about now is the signs of domestic violence. And then you make a point with the Utah police. At that point, they really didn't have anything else to detain them for, and you can't really arrest somebody in that situation. She said in Utah law, if she said her intent was not to hurt him, he let them go. But he did do his due diligence, I believe, in forcing them to separate for the night without infringing on their rights. I think that was the most that he could do. And then the other point that I want to make too is that Americans are saying, you know, there's so many people missing. Do you guys think that the Gabby Petito case is getting so much coverage because it's a Caucasian female missing when the National Crime Information Center had 90,000 missing people at the end of 2020 that didn't get coverage? So do you think that has anything to do with the coverage? I mean, that's what people are talking about, saying, why don't other people get coverage the way she has?
You know, at least in my perspective, yes. I think it's about racism and colorism that we have in our society. And sometimes when we have Caucasians, they get more probability for them to get more coverage. I think that these kind of cases, like you mentioned, makes us think that there's other people, there's way more cases that we should put attention. And I think that's also part of our media. And I think that's our job, to really represent all the cases that we have in our society. What do you think?
I think that's a really good question. So I do agree that colorism and racism does play a part to some degree in the media, because it's true, there were actually arguments I saw on my Instagram stories of people saying that plenty of Native American girls and women are missing every year, and you don't really see these stories come out on the news. So I do think it does play a part in what's happening right now and how she's being shown a lot in the news. However, I do think her situation is still very tragic. And so to say that shouldn't be reported, I think is not a good argument. I do think this is something that should be shed a light upon, and hopefully we can shed a light on domestic abuse further.
Yeah, I think that at the very least, it will open up at least the conversation for those two situations.
Across the United States, students are facing punishments and even criminal charges for participating in a recent TikTok trend known as the Devious Lick Challenge. This trend encourages teens to steal from and vandalize their schools and other public locations. Thefts range from smaller items like classroom supplies to as large as desks, soap dispensers, exit signs, and laptops. On top of stealing, students began vandalizing restrooms by damaging sinks and toilets or dismantling items like PA systems and fire alarms, all of which are being posted online. TikTok has attempted to ban such content from its app by removing all videos tagged with any verbiage correlated to these acts. However, the videos are still finding their way to the platform, and others, with use of different tags or none at all. Videos now appear on Twitter and YouTube. Schools are beginning to address the issue before it begins, making announcements, sending out emails, and even locking restroom doors for portions of the day. Several people have been criminally charged for acts of vandalism across the U.S. Some states include Florida, Arizona, Ohio, Kentucky, and Virginia.
Wow. I mean, you have to laugh at this, but at the same time, it's like, I mean, are we surprised with this? We had the ice cream lickers, we had the Tide Pod eaters. I mean, this is just another trend, and I feel like that this is something that whatever's going to get attention, and we have, and adolescents are using these platforms, it's bound to happen. If they start, criminalizing them, regardless, another one is gonna happen. Another one's gonna come out of it, and another one, and another one. I mean, I feel like it's just inevitable.
Exactly. I feel like every year or so, there's always some new trend that kids want to come up with just so they can get a few likes, get a few views. And I'm just asking, what's the point of this? What are you getting out of this? But what I really want to focus on is what would be the appropriate punishment for this. So I was thinking that if I were the principal or their teachers, if they stole something as small as like school supplies or like pencils or something, I might just give them a few detentions. However, if they start dismantling fire alarms or start stealing desks, then I think it'll be appropriate to take them out of all activities throughout the year, give them several detentions. And if this happens repeatedly, then maybe we can consider criminal charges. But I think that's a pretty fair punishment. What do you guys think?
I think it's fair. The thing, just like you were mentioning, Crystal, what's next?
Yeah.
So if we're already talking about vandalism, what's next in the future? And maybe it's gonna sound a little bit harsh, but in my opinion, I think this counts already as a crime, and they should be punished because of that. Because if no one is going to tell them what's correct and not, they're going to continue that in the future. Now, I find another perspective that probably these people, they need also to be responsible for. We know that there's police, we know there's schools. What happens to our parents, right? What happens to the parents of those kids? And I think it really relies on education. So they should be very conscious about explaining to their kids that this is incorrect, that it's improper, and they're being disrespectful to their own schools. So that's something that we really need to look forward, at least to have some more peace and order within our schools and our communities.
And I'm looking at this situation, Jorge, and I'm seeing dollar signs because I'm a parent, and I'm saying if those were my children doing this, there would be some serious consequences at home. And I think just like with anything in the schools, parents have to be involved because ultimately it's going to lead the kids down a wrong path. And then the parents are stuck with the bill.
Totally. So no matter how this might come about, let's just hope that this trend comes to an end soon. It's a shame to see how far these measures have gone. Now, for some recent updates and news regarding the COVID-19 pandemic, Pfizer announced in a news release Monday that COVID-19 vaccines work for children ages 5 to 11. The clinical trials that are currently underway are vaccinating children within this age range with a lesser dose than those for people aged 12 and up, about 1/3 of the normal dose. The trials have shown to create the same amount of antibodies as in a regularly dosed vaccine. Pfizer says that phase 2 of 3 trials generate a robust antibody response in children 5 to 11. According to data from the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, an average of 311 children were hospitalized with COVID-19 over the past week. Many parents are anxiously awaiting the approval of this child vaccine, while other parents are still hesitant. Dr. Bill Gruber, a Pfizer senior vice president, told the Associated Press that kit dosage also proved safe with similar or fewer side effects such as sore arms, fever, or itchiness that teens experience. Again, once again, we have now a new update on the vaccine. And thinking, if I was a parent, I would say that I would feel safe for my kids to get this vaccine. The fact that I understand the liberty and freedom that we have to get or not the vaccine. However, this is a public health issue, and I'm really worried about my kids, having them in school, not vaccinated, and probably getting a major probability to get infected. So in my opinion, I'll say yes, let's approve it as soon as possible, and let's get into the role. What do you think?
Well, my 3-year-old son got COVID the very first week of the semester, and I ended up missing the first week because of it. And for him, the COVID went through him just like just a small head cold, thankfully. I'm vaccinated. It would be interesting to see if it becomes a mandate like other vaccines. Like kids right now have to be vaccinated by law in the state of California for other diseases. And right now that is the mandate. But it'll be interesting to see if this actually becomes a mandate when it becomes available. Now, as a parent, I'm not going to run out and get my son, my boys vaccinated right away. It's something that their father and we're talking about. We're definitely talking about it. We're trying to do as much research as possible. I was even hesitant to get my own vaccine because it was so new, but I did get it. So I think ultimately, if enough people get vaccinated and I'm seeing that kids are not having bad reactions to it, I think I would definitely be on board, because I'm not an anti-vaxxer. I just feel like it's a little soon, and I don't know if I necessarily want to put that into my children's bodies without enough time to see what the effects are. So I think we're just going to play it safe, but it's great that it will become available for those who really do want it.
I understand that, and plus I think it's a very sensitive issue, especially when it comes to kids who are very vulnerable during this time. What I find really interesting is that CNN states that in the last couple of weeks, 30% of cases have been in people under 18 years old, although kids are 20% of the population. And so I feel like in order to get this pandemic in check, to ensure that everyone's staying safe, we're going to need to have our kids vaccinated at some point. But Crystal, I understand. I'm so sorry for what happened to your 3-year-old. Unfortunately, it was only, like you mentioned, a little head cold. But I completely agree that I think just take your time, do your research, and while I think eventually every kid should be vaccinated, I understand wanting to wait a little bit, especially when it comes to such a vulnerable population.
Thanks, Amanda. It's not an easy decision to make, but we are fortunate enough to be able to have that potentially soon, to have that option soon. So let's hope that no matter what, this is a great big step in the right direction for putting an end to the pandemic. While the COVID-19 pandemic has been greatly affecting these children and their education, let's not forget about how it also drastically took a toll on our community. The pandemic has been extremely taxing on most businesses, but who felt it the most were small business owners. Businesses like donut shops, flower shops, and local restaurant owners have had to make hard decisions, including shutting down their businesses altogether because of social distancing constraints. For single father Rob Smith, the pandemic worked out in his favor. He started the Alley Cat delivery service in 2018 with a purpose of serving his community, and he did just that. The community called on Rob for grocery deliveries, airport pickups, and drop-offs, and any kind of delivery request you can imagine. Alley Cat Deliveries has 55 reviews on Yelp, each one of them a 5-star rating, and the customers say Rob has never let them down. Rob says that Alley Cat is what it is because of his community, how they relied on him during uncertain times, and with a can-do attitude, Rob serviced the community with his young children, Malia and Mason, in tow. Customers love Alley Cat Deliveries because of Rob's prompt response and reliability. Rob joins us today via Zoom to share how he managed to build a successful business during the pandemic and the hurdles he faced to get there. Hi, Rob. Thanks so much for joining us at The Report. It's really great to have you, and we appreciate your time. Why don't you tell us a little bit about how Alley Cat Deliveries got started?
Sure. So I moved to Long Beach about 3 years ago, and we started off on a bicycle. I was working for Postmates at the time, just trying to make our rent money. We were doing, I was working 11 hours just to make $100 because back then Postmates was paying $5 an order. So long story short, I said, why don't I start going into business for myself? And I took over the community and just built a reputation and name. And unlike Uber Eats and Postmates and Grubhub, we take nothing from the small business. We just charge the customer. I say a cat has 9 lives and so do we. So we charge the customer $9 for any food item in Long Beach, like Jack in the Box or small business. And the small business keeps 100% of the sale. So, that's how, in a nutshell, we started.
Rob, I love your entrepreneurial spirit, and it's really nice to hear that you aren't taking from these small businesses just for yourself. And kind of piggybacking off of that, I read that you use 20% of your income to clothe and shelter those in need. Can you tell me a little bit more about that, and what was your incentive for doing so?
So when I was asked, I went to the Pie Bar. Lori was one of my mentors. She's the owner of Pie Bar in Long Beach. And she said, Rob, what is your business plan? How are you going to be different from these people? I said, well, how does it work? And she said, well, they take 35% of my sales. I said, well, how do you do that? And you still have a brick and mortar to pay. You have to pay the wage and ingredients. How are you making any money? She said, I'm not. So I had to think. I said, okay, how can I be different? So I said, okay, I'm not going to take any of a small business. And when I started this business off, we had an apartment, a little studio, 500 square feet, and they sold it, and we were homeless. And so I built this company always with the mindset to give back what the community gave back to me. They We moved into our new studio, a week before Christmas 2 years ago, and I had nothing. And Long Beach Coffee and Tea, rest in peace, because they closed due to COVID. But they put us on the Angel Tree. They gave us gift cards. So my mentality the whole time was to always give back. So every week, 20% we give our sales back into the community. We're clothing, we're feeding, we're housing, we do motel vouchers, because sometimes people just need a break. Like for myself, I was just coming out of a bad divorce, and if this is the way that I could pay back what was given to me, in my heart, I know I paid it back forward, and I did it the right way. And that's how I think businesses should be ran, with community in mind and to love one another. And I think that's the point that we all need to have right now, is we need to come back together, because it's a real huge division right now.
Wow. Well, first of all, Rob, congratulations on this business. We want to congratulate you because that's such a good cause for people. Now, I also have another question for you. Right now that we are during this pandemic, being online with your business, it's very important today. So how would you describe your social media campaign? I've been looking to your Instagram page, and also it's growing in following. And also have a follow-up question. What's up with the cat? We love the cat that we can see on social media. So tell us a little bit of that story.
Okay, so when I started this company off on a bike, I was in the side streets and alleyways. And I just had to come up with a name. And I'm not a cat lover. Don't tell anyone, but I know this is live. But I am a dog lover. But I was like, I'm in the side streets. I'm on a bike. Why don't I just be an alley cat? I know the side streets. I know the back streets. So that's how I came up with Alley Cat Deliveries. And so that's how I did that. With social media, I just did it with a good heart, and I just put my best foot forward. I built this business in 3 years, and just this year, the Grinding Gazette and Press Telegram voted us the best delivery service in Long Beach.
So, Rob, tell us how the pandemic has affected you, whether negative or positively. I saw all of your reviews, over 55 reviews on Yelp, 5-star rated, a lot of them during COVID. So how does somebody get that during a pandemic?
So when I started this off, I had Pie Bar, I had Romeo Chocolates, I had Long Beach Coffee and Tea, but then everyone's doors closed down. I said, great, here I am starting something, what do I do? And every day my mind doesn't stop thinking or pivoting. So I said, why don't I do grocery shopping? Why don't I go in and get the resources that people are afraid to go get? I'll put my life on the line and go risk just to keep us going. I pivoted into groceries, and that's what put us on the map. We were doing everything we could to serve our community, get the essentials, and say, hey, Alley Cat here is here to help. And that's how our reputation built. We did it the right way, on good standing. And that's how I'm very proud of that. You know, to have 55 reviews, all 5 stars, nothing less. I take very much pride in that. I work Monday through Saturday, 8 to 8, and 98% of the time, it's always me to your door. Just recently, we pivoted again. We go to John Wayne Airport. We go to LBX and LAX. We do share rides, and we undercut the market from being $125 for Uber and unreliable, canceled when you need to get to the airport. And now we just pivoted again, and we're doing airport shuttle rides. So that put us back on the map when everything opened up after the pandemic, which was hard because I lost all my restaurant dinner business. So I pivoted again, and I said, okay, let's do some shuttle rides. So I never stop reinventing my business. I never put myself in a box, because that's how you lose yourself, just being in a cookie cutter like everyone else. I always pivot.
Well, it sounds like you have a survivor's heart, which is so important in trying to start a business. We know how difficult it can be. You do not make a profit in the first few years, and so it's a lot of blood, sweat, and tears. So we really appreciate you being here with us today and sharing your story, Rob. We know that it will be an inspiration to so many right now. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Please look us up, Alley Cat Deliveries. My cell phone's on the website or Instagram. Whatever you guys need for the community, we will be there in support.
Great. Thanks so much, Rob. Have a great day.
You as well. Thank you guys for the opportunity.
What an inspiration and charitable spirit. And just the fact that even though he was homeless for a while and he was divorced and he had kids on top of everything, and he still decided to innovate himself and create something for himself and the community is just amazing to me. Thank you so much, Rob, for your amazing service to your community when we were at our most vulnerable and insufferable times, gravitating from one great accomplishment and achieving many more. Let's move on to some news above the clouds. SpaceX did it! They sent 4 civilians to their Space Abroad, their Dragon capsule, making history as the first ever flight to Earth's orbit done entirely by tourists. CNN reported the passengers included 38-year-old Isaac Min, who personally financed and arranged a trip with Elon Musk, Haley Ocrono, age 29, a childhood cancer survivor and St. Jude Children's Research Hospital physician assistant, Sean Proctor, a 51-year-old geologist, community college professor, and Chris Sembrowski, a 42-year-old Lockheed Martin employee and lifelong space fan who claimed to seat through an online raffle. Mission Inspiration 4 was reported to be a success with a few minor technical issues that got smoothed out during the mission. The capsule flew around 350 miles high, higher than anyone has flown and orbited in decades. Though the passengers were not the first tourists to visit space, they were the first to fly without stopping at the International Space Station. The 4 civilians were in free orbit for 3 days before smoothly descending to Earth, landing in the ocean, and heading back to Florida. Wow, so I'm so excited to hear that Mission Inspiration 4 ended up being successful. So according to CNN, SpaceX hopes that the crew had a great time because they have contracts for 5 other private missions. They also have at least 4 other NASA contracted missions as well. So it makes me wonder if in the next few decades, if space tourism will be something that's normal here. And I want to know, would you guys try this?
Before I had kids, I would have said yes. But now the uncertainty, sometimes I won't even drive at night on the freeway because it's crazy. So, when you have kids, it changes things. But I actually won a trip to the Space Center in Alabama when I was in school for writing a report on which planet I'd want to visit. I didn't get to go, so I passed it on to a friend. But I've always had a fascination with space. I still do. So it would be amazing to have done it. But with kids, I would say no. Without kids, definitely, for sure.
That's true. At least in my perspective, I would love to do it. I think it's a lifetime experience having that opportunity. So I will feel very, very special. And I bet that these kind of accomplishments are going to be occurring more and more often in the future. We have other companies, they are private, and they're investing a lot of money for this to be accomplished. So hopefully that we can get more of this. At least for us. And for you, huge congratulations to SpaceX. It's funny because while they were high up in the sky defying gravity, we ourselves were experiencing tremors underground back on Earth, which brings us to our next story. California and some of Mexico were shaken by an earthquake on Friday, September 17th. The epicenter of the quake was located in Carson, a small suburb near Long Beach. Californians felt the 4.3 magnitude shake around 8:30 p.m. that Friday. Luckily, no damage was reported in the city of Carson or surrounding neighborhoods. Guys, I felt it, and I was super scared because, first of all, I was thinking, okay, I'm not really prepared for these kind of situations. That makes me feel like I need to be more prepared, or at least to have more knowledge about that this can happen in any time. So what do you guys think about this?
So for me, when it happened, of course, this is one of many I have felt growing up and being from LA, so many. But for me, I thought somebody was breaking into our home. I saw things moving, the vase moving, and I saw the stairs were creaking, and I was ready to call 911 because it didn't feel like an earthquake. I just saw certain things moving. I thought somebody ran up our stairs, so I told my kids, get out of the house! They were barefoot. I was like, get out! And then my neighbor was like, did you feel the earthquake? And I was like, oh, okay. I was about to call the police. But on that note, a couple of years ago, there is something you can do to prepare yourself. And something I did a couple of years ago was do certified emergency response training. And I did it through the Redondo Beach Fire Department, where they teach you to be a first responder, but they teach you first aid, how to use AEDs, and what to prepare, how to prepare in the event of an earthquake. So that's something, it's called CERT training, and it might be something to look into. I did it, and you become CPR certified as well. So it prepares you.
I need to look into that because, to be honest, I actually have a huge phobia of earthquakes. And so fortunately, this one was small. So I actually live in Lakewood, and my parents dropped me off here, before the earthquake actually occurred. But apparently they felt it more in Lakewood because it's closer to Carson. I think only about, I want to say 10, 15 minutes away. And so I started feeling shaking, and all of a sudden I felt my legs become weak. Like they were like noodles. However, I do think I need to take that. That way I have a clear and calm mind. And what I really need is an emergency preparedness kit because I don't have anything. I don't have canned foods. I didn't think about getting water bottles, a flashlight, batteries, anything. So I think that's something I really need to look to in the future.
Totally, yeah. And I completely agree with you, Amanda, because at least I was looking for those apps, that they can at least warn you some minutes or during when it's happening. So I really encourage you to get those apps, try to always be prepared, get more knowledge, get some training, and for sure that we can be better prepared for these kinds of situations in the future. And with that, that's all the time we have today on The Report Roundtable discussion. Have a safe week, everyone, and stay tuned for more news, views, and info. I'm Jorge Flores.
I'm Chris Adler.
And I'm Amanda Mendoza. As always, tusk up, Titans.